If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then the UK Property Market Stats Show is for you. My name is Chris Watkin. Each week I'm joined by a special guest. This week we've got Iain White, who used to be big in the game at Romans and now is a guru, coach, guide and support for some of the biggest agents and smallest agents in the UK. We'll come to Iain in a second. What is this show all about, ladies and gentlemen? The British are obsessed about the property market. We love what's happening to house prices, and we talk about it in the newspapers, on social media all the time. The problem is that the Land Registry is looking at data from sales, which we're in August now, probably were agreed in October or November last year. The Halifax and Nationwide are looking at sales that took place 2-3 months ago. We are looking at house prices from last week. We're looking at data from last week. And by knowing what's happening in the property market in that such short notice, we can foretell what will happen to those indices months and months in advance. So if you want to know what's happening in the property market, then the UK Property Market Stat Shows for you. This week, it's week 33, which is Monday, the 12th of August, all the way through up until and including Sunday, the 18th of August. And as I said, this week we're joined by Iain White, regular special guest, certainly knows his onions. Thanks for joining me today, Iain.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking me on.
Excellent. Always give great value for money. Ladies and gentlemen, the show is approximately an hour long. The first 2/3 will be looking at the UK property market. And then the second third is we look at a hyperlocal town and really deep dive and look at the estate agents and letting agents in that town. This week we are looking at Camberley in Surrey, which is pretty near you, Iain, isn't it?
Yes, it must be a couple of miles down the road, and it's a market that I have personally overseen one of the Romans offices back in the day. So I know it. I've had property there, and I know it inside out. Yes, so it's before it's been a bit hypothetical for me, but now this is something I know this market well.
Excellent. If you're not from Camberley, you might want to switch off from that, but I would certainly recommend that you do watch that. The reason being is we're going to be using a bit of kit, which if you're an estate agent and you're being battered with not being called out to valuations, or if you are being called out, you're losing them to overvaluing, or you're losing them on cheap fees, and you really are the agent who is absolutely top drawer, then this bit of kit independently will show the world that you are a better estate agent. So if you're suffering from low fees, overvaluing, or not being called out, then watch that part and have a look at the bit of kit we're going to be using. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, and you can get what you deserve when it comes to the listings. Okay, Iain, without further ado, let's go and have a look at the UK stats. And first off, we'll start off with the listings. So as always, we start with listings, and this week we put on 34,000 properties with an average asking price of £399. We are year to date, we are on 1.164 million properties, which, to give you an idea, year to date, last year was just 1.083 million, which means we're 7.2% ahead of the game compared to 2023. And we are 9.3% ahead of the game year to date compared to the last 8 years. Okay, and just to put that into context, this particular graph here, the white line is 20. Oh, can you see that, Iain? Sorry, you should shout up if I can't see it. You can't see that, can you?
I can, but the first slide disappeared. So the slides were there and then they went. There we go.
Right, there they are. Good stuff. So the white line there is the weekly listings compared to the turquoise line at 2018, the pink line at 23, the green line at 2019, and the yellow line at 2017. Just before, I'll just say this for the record, ladies and gentlemen. All these graphs are available for you to download. If you're listening on the podcast, go and look at the description. If you are listening to this on YouTube, go to the description. All these graphs are available for you to download for personal use, and also I don't mind you using them at valuations What I do mind though is please don't use them on social media. And the reason I say that is that my daytime job, this isn't my daytime job, neither is interviewing people on the sofa, it's just a hobby of mine. My daytime job is I create UK and hyper-local stats for agents to make them very knowledgeable about the property market, and they do use these stats. They also mainly use the local stuff, but I'd ask if you're not a client of mine, you don't use them, but I don't mind you use them in the free valuation. It helps everyone. What's your thoughts on listings, Ian?
Well, look, I mean, I think we all know that the estate agent has gone from sort of the famine of not having a lot for sale, and you know how that produces a type of market that's quite aggressive in terms of the buyers moving fast and bidding. Now we are actually in a place where there's quite a lot of stock for sale, and as you can see from that, a large number of instructions coming into the marketplace. So the choice for the buyer is at the highest it's been for some time.
Here we are.
And
here's the stock levels now, Ian. You know, at the end of July, we had 715,000 properties for sale. All the yellow lines here are just the end of July's going back every year. You know, there's a lot more stock around, isn't there?
There is a lot more stock around, and there's a lot more coming on. But one of the reasons that stock is sat here as for sale is because it's been overvalued either by the owner or the estate agent. So we've got 715,828 opportunities to earn a commission, which are largely being messed up by overvaluing by either the client or by the estate agent or both. Because if you're going to operate in a market, you know, if you could choose any market to open up in, it'd be one where there were lots of instructions, because you can go and get your piece of that pie. You can go and canvas and persuade people to switch. You can go and get your share of what's coming in. So it's a great market for estate agents, but only if you're going to look the owner in the eye and have some very honest and open conversations about what increased stock means, and what just the general market has drifted to, with a combination of interest rates, the backlash from COVID, changing government, you know, all the things that have been slightly held back the market. They have had a little bit of impact on prices. So there should be affordability in the market as well as volume. If we can get affordability into the market and volume through asking prices, we can't affect interest rates as an industry, but we can affect the price point and we can affect the volume. The agent should be in a period of absolute feast. Unfortunately, that isn't necessarily the case. I mean, we are in a pretty good market, let's be honest. It's still pretty stable. We're seeing very normal results. But it does upset me that agents appear to still be bidding for the instruction, using the valuation as a vehicle to win the business, not good old-fashioned advice and evidence to back up their thing, and be prepared to lose an instruction and win it second.
I mean, a stat that I know you're passionate about is that for every 100 homes that are leaving estate agents' books, which in essence are listings, you know, estate agents are only being paid on 53 of them. The other 47 are leaving their books and they're not being paid on them. You know, a flip of a coin, whether you're going to get paid or not, is disgusting, isn't it?
Yes, but there's also a bigger connotation to that. That means that 47% of the time, the agent listing, the agent that's entrusted with the listing fails. So it's not good for our industry. It's not good for the reputation of the industry. I mean, if your chances of success are 50-50, the client is going to be very uncertain about doing it. If they've previously had an experience where it's not sold, and let's be honest, there's only one reason why a property in the UK won't sell. There's only one reason in reality. Could be the wrong agent, but 99 times out of 10, it's the wrong price.
Yeah, because we've got, it's like the old days where you went in newspapers or you didn't. The Rightmove and the portals have created a level playing field, which means if you put half decent images on and a write-up, even not, the property should get the buyers and the interest, because that's the big
however you market it. Social media, I would say, is more powerful than Rightmove these days if you know how to use it. But yes, you've got Rightmove, you've got your own website, you've got social media, you've got your database of buyers, you've got your for sale boards, you've got a million ways that you can introduce a property to the marketplace. If it's not selling, it is overpriced. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I understand the higher you go, the variances on that can, you might have to wait a little bit longer for a buyer that will pay the right price. And, every property has a minimum and a maximum. But if you took the average and said, look, let's be sensible about what price would I guarantee to sell it at, and start at that point and work up, Whereas I think what agents are doing is saying, what do I need to value to get a signature on a bit of paper, and then try and work down. And it's like, I think it puts a bad taste in the mouth, because I think the agents assume that the client will go with the person who values it at the most. I think the agent, and that might happen because we're all playing it. Honestly, I meet lots of agents, and every single time I go to an ad, they say the biggest problem I've got, every agent in my town charges too little and overvalues. And it's like, you're part of that problem. In most cases, it isn't every other agent, it is every agent. So the consumer gets caught in the crossfire of getting 10 agents overvaluing it and 10 agents quoting low fees. So they just think that's the norm. They should be able to rely on our expertise. And I'll be honest with you, I'm really enjoying the advent of these independent brokers that are coming out and working under umbrellas or agents' umbrellas, because they get it. They don't want to carry stock. They don't want to spend their hard-earned time, effort, and money listing stock that won't sell. So they are much more honest, open, and selective. And I'm guessing their market share is growing because the consumer doesn't go with the highest price and the lowest fee. They go with the person they think is going to, a good client will go with the person they think is most likely to get them moved.
And it's our job to prove that, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's you know, I think there's a real opportunity for the agent, the industry now, to pick its feet up, primarily solve and say, look, let's stop bidding for instructions and start being honest and using sensible data. Obviously, you're tied in with the company that's helping you, but use really good data and really good evidence and really good reporting to provide the owner with a very, very accurate idea of the value of their property. If the owner's position is, I hear you, I understand you, I'm prepared to drop it, can you try at a higher price? I get that. What I don't get is, you know what it's worth, but you tell the client something different to win the instruction. That's the bit that's killing us.
Yeah, I think that there's a difference between unethical overvaluing and ethical overvaluing. You know, we'll try it at 400, but I genuinely believe we might have to bring it down to 375. Let's try it at that and actually say, I'll be here in 2 weeks' time. Write it into the sole agency agreement. As long as you're saying them on the sofa, it's this. Let's try it at that. But you know, we did this show a few weeks ago and we went to Southend, and there was one agent quite obviously doing that. They were overvaluing, but they were pulling their price reductions in, were off the scale, and they were getting the houses sold. It's the agents that whack it on, that don't let it fester there like a fish on the side of a quayside in downtown Spain. It goes off, and then everyone falls out.
I think even strategy A of valuing high but having the skill to get it down, okay, that produces an outcome which is positive, but it isn't an honest way of doing it. If you're putting it on high, but the owner is under knowing, you know, they absolutely get that we're trying high, but and it's in writing.
I think
it's on the contract.
That's ethical. I think
100% ethical. Of course it is, because why? It's not an exact science for a start. There might always be that 1 in 100 buyer that will pay a little bit extra because it's next to their mum or next to their nan, or it's a street they've always wanted to be in, or they love that particular house. There's always that. But once you've explored that for 2 or 3 weeks, if that bite doesn't happen, you've then got to hit reality. But you need to have told the client what reality is at point one, and what fantasy is, and what, you know, and document it in a way that it can't be misconstrued, that it is, you know, because the client might remember differently what you've said. If you know, so put on the contract, my valuation is X, the owner has asked me to value it at Y. I mean, be unequivocal with your.
I was with the head of Martin Co yesterday, and he actually recommends his franchisees actually book like a sales face to face 2 or 3 weeks, and he books it at the time of listing. You know,
that was a standard Romans policy, that if you regardless of the market, if you list a house, you book the revisit at that point and say, look, I hope this isn't necessary, but in the event that it's not sold, you can hold me accountable to my actions. I'm going to come back here and face the music. Of course, part of that is to then have a conversation about altering the strategy on price. But it was a prerequisite. That's what you did. You listed a property and you had to show that there was a corresponding, I think we were 4 weeks, not 3, but there had to be a corresponding appointment in the diary to revisit in the event it wasn't securely under offer to a closed chain.
There you go. You've heard it here first. This is new accountability. I think I've always said the person who puts the house on the market is the one that should do the vendor management. I know some people disagree with me, but if you put it on, you manage it. Anyway, let's get down to price changes. There you go. Let's go back. Here we go. So this week we changed prices on 21,300 properties, which works out that we're changing the price of approximately 1 in 8 properties per month. doesn't sound a lot. That's been slipping. That was one in seven a couple of months ago. So we're slipping on our price reductions there. Anything on that before we move and look at sales?
Yeah, I think interest rate reductions will have done two things. One, it will have taken away the confidence of the agent to have the conversation with the view that, what's it all going to mean? And let's be honest, we've all been waiting for interest rates to drop in order for it to flick a switch in the market, which hasn't quite done yet. And secondly, it may have stiffened the resolve of the owners to your persuasiveness on price, because they may feel, well, reduction in interest rates means we might see prices go up. And of course we might. So I think there may be a little bit of that, but it's really simple for me. An overpriced house is an overpriced house. Forget interest rates, forget time of year, forget, if it's overpriced, it's overpriced. And I think we have a duty of care as an industry. And I think we should be accountable to this. I think there should be some legal recourse for overvaluing if it genuinely causes loss to a seller. I think agents need to be, it does with the surveyor. But yes, so I think the interest rates have slightly taken the wind out of the sails of the brave agents and made them cautious again and thinking, oh, maybe it will go up, or maybe other agents are in their ear roll saying, no, bring it to me, I can sell it now the interest rates have dropped. And they fear losing it. And maybe some owners are feeling a bit more confident because they believe that might be a mechanism, and there's been a bit of press speculation around that as well, hasn't there? So
you're absolutely right there, Ian. Let's move on to sales. And this week we have sold 24,873 properties, which on the screen now compares week 33 against other weeks. And again, apart from 2020, which again was the crazy year, post lockdown, that is really, really comparable. To say that we have sold almost as many houses than we did in 2022. Again, is really good, because again the trust budget hadn't kicked in by this time. We've got to wait a couple of months for that.
It's good when you compare it to 2022, but is it good compared to the number of properties available? And I'm not convinced that if you did it that way around and said, right, the opportunity is this big, what percentage of that is turning into cash? That probably is not such a good story, because I'm guessing there's more houses for sale now than there was in 2022.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look. I think you're right, because we've done that stat on the sale agreed this week. It's a new graph which we're going to show you, ladies and gentlemen. So, okay, so 24,000. What year are we comparing it against?
22, which is the nearest number of.
Yeah, then here we go. So in 22, 466,000 versus 715. You're absolutely right there, Ian.
So we've got 60% more opportunity, unless the house prices have collapsed or your fee proposition has collapsed. That 24,000 should be a lot more. It's overvaluing that's stopping that number being much bigger.
Again, I think next week or so I'll get that graph sorted out, because I think that's great insight. We've done that, ladies and gentlemen, with fall throughs this week, which again I think you'll like that graph, but we'll do that. Great insight there, Ian. Let's get back. Gross sales, the white line is 24, and then you can see the pink line is 23. So again, just to give you an idea, this number of gross sales in 23 was 20,300. In 22 it was 25,000. So again, a little bit higher. Yeah, it's not bad, is it? Not bad at all. Just again comparing different years. Again, just to give you an idea, let's just show that on a. Yeah, we've done that. Average price 360 that's selling. So again, let's move on and look at this. You will see here that the what tends to happen is that the orange line is the average asking price of the properties that are selling agreed that week. We don't know what they sell for, but we'll assume it's whatever the headline asking price was. The red line is the average asking price of the properties coming on the market. Now you'll notice here this is the last summer. It pinches in. So this is May, June, July, August. So what happens here, ladies and gentlemen, is this. And I've said this most weeks, is this. That is in London, London goes to sleep during the summer in the property market, and then everyone dumps their big houses in Chelsea, and that we should get that lift this year in the first 2 weeks in September, and that will rocket up like that. And that London has such a huge effect on the averages of these prices.
Yeah, the prices are so different that it has a the maths are correct, but it's an unfair.
Yes.
You're suddenly putting stuff on at 15, 20 million. It's going to affect things disproportionately. It
is. And what is particularly interesting is if you look again, come back to this graph, in the last year, we stripped London out of this, and that gap was quite a lot narrower. So London does have a huge effect on averages. Anything on sales, Ian, before we go and look at fall throughs?
Well, no, again, I would just say, look, we could sit here and say to ourselves that, the white line is positive because it is, but is it our success of the opportunity available is nosediving? So as estate agents, we're doing okay, but we are not monetizing fully the opportunity we've got of all those houses in your for sale drawer. So if you are a business owner or a sales director in a big corporate or a manager in a large business or small business for that matter, you have every single piece of kit you need to significantly change the turnover of your branch. Have you got the strategy, the behavior, the ability, the evidence to have those conversations to deal with that problem that you've allowed it into your space, or you've even invited it into your space at the wrong price? And overpriced stock, Chris, guess what it attracts? Overpriced stock. If the consumer is seeing their house on with free agents at 550, but in reality it's only going to fetch 450, their perception is theirs is worth 550. They don't. So we're just creating this problem in the market that as an industry we're just sleepwalking into a fact. And every time you list a property, there's money. You spend money, time, effort, energy, cost. Cost goes up. The number of people needed to deal with the viewings and the output of that property goes up. So the profitability of the agency goes down. The actual disposition of I must win every listing kills profitability, because it typically leads to overvaluing and low fees.
Absolutely bang on, mate. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see why we get Ian here. He knows these onions. Okay, let's go to fall throughs. Okay, so number of fall throughs this week is at 6,351. That's been hovering around the 6.5 mark. I'll just pull up the stats now. Here we go. So last week it was 6.6, week before 6.4, 6.8, 6, 6.4, 6.2. So this is a standard graph. Again, those who have not watched the show before, these are the Christmas dips, because obviously the number of fall throughs just falls, nothing happens during Christmas week. And this graph here shows the percentage of fall throughs this week expressed as a percentage of the sales agreed this week. So again, for those who have not watched the show before, that was the trust budget. Okay, and then she leveled down to around 20%. Then the interest rate started to kick in the late spring of 23, hovering around the 30% mark, drifting downwards to Christmas. There's a second Christmas spike.
The graphs aren't actually up, Chris, just so you know.
We should have said, sorry, my apologies. Hold on a second. There you go. There we go. So there you go. Should have said next time. Right. So there you go. That's the number of fall throughs, actual numbers, and that's the percentages. Okay.
Yeah, again, this is the reverse of what I've been ranting on about a minute ago. The actual, you could argue that the abortives are going up, but as a percentage of what's in the under offer drawer, they're actually pretty static at about 6%, I think.
And this is a brand new graph, ladies and gentlemen, because I was a few weeks ago, someone suggested, wouldn't it be interesting if you actually the sales agreed in the month expressed as a percentage of the sales in the pipeline? Again, just to show you the sales pipeline. This graph here shows you the number of properties that are in agents' pipeline every month, going back to the start of 2017. The white lines are the end of July, so we can compare each July in isolation. And again, you can see here that, when the agents have got 500,000 properties in agents' pipelines, and most agents at the moment are getting through around 20 to 23% of their sales pipeline per month. Can you remember the good old days, Ian, when you used to get stuff through in 8 weeks? Anything over 8 weeks was considered a long time.
I would challenge whether the average agent's getting 23, 24%. I reckon they're sub 20, the average estate agent. The good agents that have, worked out their sales progression process, they've worked out blended fee models, they've worked out reservation deposits, they might be getting up to 25, 26, 27% now, and they've certainly shortened the time frame between listing and putting it under offer and exchanging contracts. But and again, that really is an issue for our industry, that we're not as a whole. I mean, the elite agents and the ones that are that are running with it, they are changing that structure, and people willing to make those changes and train those changes and run with those changes because it benefits their cash flow and their staff's wages. But we've got a huge pipeline apart from the COVID year. It's a good amount in the pipeline. So it bodes well, but the problem is it don't come through at the same rate. Even at 23-24%, it means that you're exchanging your pipeline 4 times a year. 25% would be 4 times per annum. We used to do a third of the pipeline, and technology has supposedly moved on. Now,
Interestingly, I had some arguments with some solicitors over the weekend, and I said, because I've got a real downer on referral fees. What a lot of people aren't aware of is that where panel solicitors take up to around a half of the fee. Some of it goes back to the agent, yes, but a lot of it goes back to the panel. What exactly are you giving back for that money? Anyway, we had some great discussions on that, arguments and things like that. Yeah, interesting. So again, let's just come back. So that shows that the number of sales falling through as a percentage of pipeline is pretty static, okay, which means that even though sales are increasing as a percentage of pipeline, they're not. So just a little bit of stuff to put a smile on your face. But again, as Iain rightly says, is what are you doing to get the stuff through? Because it's all very good having a lovely pipeline, but you can't spend it, can you?
No, and but it costs a lot of money to service it if you're doing it with either the time of your lister or a sales progressor or even outsourcing. There is a, if it sits there, there is a manpower cost, or an outsource cost. Now, I think the business argument to outsource is growing and growing and growing by the day, because the longer it sits in the under offer drawer, if you outsource it, you pay a fixed fee, whether it's in there for 10 weeks or 20 weeks. If it's you doing it, your fixed fee for getting that deal through, although you don't see it on a spreadsheet, it's going up and up and up and up, assuming you're servicing it. So the actual business argument, if you were an analyst landing from Mars, you'd say, well, why the hell do you do your own sales progression? I'm
a totally massive fan of either in-house specialist sales progression or outsourcing it. We've got a great friend, Richard Megson from Complete ASAP. Others are available, but do check them out because they're getting sales through and whole chains through on average around 12 weeks, which is a lot more than the average of 19. Let's just move on and look at net sales. Net sales is the number of gross sales less fall throughs in the week. The white line is 2024. And you can see here that we are slightly above the yellow line, which is the average of 2017 to 2019. So again, whilst our gross sales are quite a lot ahead of 2017, 18 and 19, our fall throughs are higher because for the reasons we've just mentioned. So again, we're not as heads and shoulders on nets as we are compared to gross. The pink line is 2023, which we are heads and shoulders, but remember in 2023 we had a lot of fall throughs coming through. Net sales year to date, I'll just pull up the graphs. Hold on a second, Iain. I'll just do that now. We're on 630,000, which is 14% ahead of 23 and 4.6% ahead of 17, 18 and 19. Any thoughts on net sales?
As I say, I think it's steady as she goes on the net sales. It's just very disappointing for me that the net sales isn't tracking the net listings, i.e., as the number of properties available goes up, the number of net sales should go up. And it sort of isn't. So it means that a bigger and bigger piece of the instruction pie that we fight so hard to get isn't turning into a success for your customer and an invoice for your business. And that is totally solvable. There is no money that needs to be spent. You might want to spend a little bit on your system for putting a deal together. You might want to spend a bit on reservation deposits and understanding blended fees to rule out, vendors that aren't serious and buyers that aren't serious. All of that's structurally changing, I think, in the market, or certainly it's structurally changing for the forward-thinking estate agents. But even without that stuff, although I would suggest that you start looking at that as an estate agent, you really have got to move with the times now. You're going to get left behind. Your stats won't stand up to your competitors, or your service or the outcomes won't stand up to your competitors. But the simple fact is those net sales should be running in line with the opportunity, and it isn't. We're actually becoming less and less successful.
Interestingly, Iain, I know you're aware of this, but ladies and gentlemen might not, but on Tuesday the 22nd of October at Twickenham, we've got an event with the ICG approved website. If you go to icgapproved.co.uk, we've got Ian Preston talking about how he's using blended fees to get more, get higher fees and also a bit more upfront as well. That I've listened to that presentation and it takes a lot to impress me, and my mouth was just, well, it was just jaw dropping. Amazing presentation. And again, anyone in the south of London, please do when the tickets come out. I don't think they're out yet, Ian, are they? But they will be.
No, we've not. We've obviously got the normal people that we're checking if they want the tickets first before they go on general release. And we've not really advertised the event, but ultimately it's free to attend. We're putting it on for the suppliers are putting it on and paying for it for the estate agents, and it's great value content. Not just Ian's bit. I think there's lots of other things, but yes, Ian's bit is a very powerful part of what happens.
We've got some stuff about tech. We guarantee you won't be sold to. And we've also got some talking about. I've got a couple of agents coming to talk about reservation agreements, which will get your fall through rate down to single figures. Okay, so just a couple of extra little bonus graphs here, which look at what gross sales as a percentage of listings. Again, what we're going to take forward from this on Ian's suggestion, which is a great idea, Ian. We're going to look at listings as a percentage of properties. Sorry, gross sales as a percentage of properties on the market. That is a great idea. You can see why we invite Ian back each time. Price changes again as a percentage of listings. And again, that might also be worth looking at compared to stock levels. That could be very interesting. With regard to house prices, the orange line is the pound per square foot at sale agreed, and basically that will foretell what's going to happen to the land registry about five months in advance. So we're on an upward spiral at the moment, and we will continue to do that for another 2 or 3 months. Then she might just dip down slightly. So just again,
Chris, can I just ask you a question? What I mean, obviously, the market's found its rhythm now, and sort of COVID's pretty much in the past. Interest rates have settled, and if doing anything, they're coming down. Where are the doom mongers? These people that said Armageddon, that we'd only have 500,000 movers, that we'd have 30% reduction. Who's holding them accountable? I mean, have any of them been brave enough to put their hand up and say, you know what, I called it too deep, I called it wrong? They're partially right. Markets dropped. I think prices have dropped. Transaction volumes did drop, but they're now returning to normal levels. But the Armageddon they predicted, where are these people? Has anybody actually called them to account and said, look, come and tell us about how you got it so wrong?
I believe some of them are. I know the gentleman called Charlie Lambdin. He's got Best Agent Day, which I think is in the next few weeks or so. Follow Charlie on. I believe. Hold on, here it is. It is on. Here we go. Wednesday, the 4th of September. I'm a guest on that one, and I will be challenging him on that. Okay.
Have any of them come out and said, okay, look, it was an opinion, and I've over-egged it? Or are they all still defending that their information is correct and it has actually happened, even though it hasn't? I'm just intrigued as to how they can defend their position.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion, Ian.
Yeah, but you can't have an opinion on whether the market has dropped by 40% or not.
It hasn't yet. But again, it's okay if you move. I think early on, certain people were moving goalposts and a long period. And I said their opinion is. Isn't it amazing though that when we were all voting for Brexit, everyone was saying, including the Chancellor of the Exchequer, that house prices would drop off the face of the earth if we voted for Brexit. I'm not getting involved with the Brexit argument, but at the end of the day,
it didn't happen. The market's robust. It is a remarkably robust
market is
space, but it would be interesting. I'd love just one or two of them to say, do you know what? It was an opinion. Absolutely, you're right, Chris. They're entitled to their opinion, but they are categorically wrong. They were wrong. They weren't wrong in the fact that prices have dropped. They were wrong in by the amount. They're not wrong in the fact that transactions dropped, because they unequivocally did, but not to the extent that they panicked everybody. I think in some cases, not because they truly believed it, but because they just wanted to be notorious and famous and popular for a period of time. But I can't believe anybody would ever listen to any of them again unless they're brave enough to say, do you know what? It hasn't happened to the extent I said. Because that's the brave thing. I would do that. I honestly would do that if I'd have cocked it. If it had dropped by 40%, I'd be here saying, Christ, I got it wrong.
Okay, there you go. Right then. Anything else before we go to Camberley?
No, just I really would ask the leaders in the businesses and the people that can affect it. If you've got overpriced stock that's been on for 60 days or longer and it's part of this problem, deal with it, guys. It's a commission waiting to happen. If you don't do anything, it's a complaint waiting to happen.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Ian. Right, let's go to Camberley. Okay, Ian, as always, we are using the Insights platform from 20EA. The Insights platform is Rightmove Plus on steroids with lasers and gitterballs. It's amazing. I must stress, I'm not paid by 20EA to promote it. I am its biggest fan. You can buy this package on a town-by-town, region, or UK-based basis. I'm not getting involved with pricing. I believe for the town it's very reasonable. That's just my opinion, but I'm not going to mention prices, and you don't mention my name because I'm not on commission. Just want to get that one out of the way, ladies and gentlemen. The kit itself looks at your property market over a period of 5 plus the current year you're in. That's the problem with Rightmove Plus. It only goes back a year. So this really does have a look. So today that we are looking at Camberley, and for the purposes of this, we're looking at the postcodes of all the GU15s plus GU16-7 and GU16-8, which appears to be the bulk of Camberley. Okay. And what we're going to do here is I'll just switch off new builds because we don't want the new builds in there. And we're going to look at all the different agents and see where they sit in the marketplace. Now, before we kick off, Ian, describe the Camberley property market.
Well, I mean, it's a lovely area. It's got a nice average house price. It's a commuter town, as well as having a good, strong local economy itself. It's a typical Surrey town. It's a bit further out from London, so it's on the extremities of Surrey, where Surrey would meet Berkshire and Hampshire. Really good schooling. It's a really good residential area. The bit that always struck me about Camberley, because I have operated a business in this town, is for the type of stock it's got and for the size of the market, it's got remarkably few agents physically based in it. There's been a few more open in recent years, to be honest with you. You can see from that list, there's some of those are fairly new entrants, but going back a few years, there was only 5 or 6 agents serving Camberley, so it was a good place to consider opening, I think. But it's a really good market with good family properties, good schooling, lovely area, good place to live, very accessible. It's got a main line into London. Very leafy, very it's nice, and it's one of the cheaper Surrey. Although it's expensive by UK standards, average house price, it's actually cheap for Surrey.
You might use the word inexpensive, Ian.
Inexpensive, yes. No, you're right. Actually, that is the correct language for it as an estate agent. It's inexpensive compared to not cheap. Yes, that is good value compared to.
Okay, so what we'll first do is we'll just look at general stock levels first. We'll just switch off the new builds because we don't want those. And we can see here that you can look at general stock levels of how different agents are. And that's the wonderful thing. You can see who's building up their stock, who's putting too many houses on the market. And again, you can just see the numbers there. But let's get down to nitty gritty, because this is the really good stuff. Let's see who's putting their houses. So we are looking between the 1st of January 2019 and the 19th of August 2024. New instructions. The average price of a property that's come on the market, and that's 5 and a bit years, 523,000, 6,951 properties have come onto the market. So the first off, we'll look at Orchard. You can see here that their market share in 2019 has grown steadily up to around the 20% mark, but then that's been drifting off downwards, and now it's around the 10% mark. That is interesting that Orchard, are number 1 overall in the last 5 and a bit years, but they're definitely not going to be number 1 with 10% or 9% of the market there. Let's go and look at Vicaries. So Vicaries have remained, ignore that spike. Oh, there we go. That must have just been a damn good month that month. But they've been pretty stable around that 10-11% mark. We will look at the last 12 months as an example. Here's your old crowd, Ian, Romans. And again, I would say they're pretty static around the 7 or 8% mark. Let's go and look at Bridges. The Bridges team slight drifting downwards there from around that 15-16% mark, and now hovering around the 8% mark. That's Carlo and his team. Let's go and look at Knight's properties, which is John and Adil, and they seem to have doing really well here, up to 10%, and just bouncing around between 5 and 10. Let's go and look at Seymour's, which is ably run by Ian Marlowe, and then I think there's almost like license or franchisees. I don't think they call themselves franchisees. And they can see here that they've grew between 19 and 20, but been pretty level, pretty steady, slight drifting downwards. Let's go look at Waterford's, Jigsaw, Prospect.
I don't think Prospect are in Camberley anymore. I think this must include Frimley, which is a sort of part of Camberley.
Yes, and what we've got to do here is this. I looked at what Rightmove thought was Camberley, and it did include a little bit of Frimley on the other side of the M3.
Maybe even deep cut, because I think yeah. Yeah.
But I basically choose whatever Rightmove says is Camberley. I match the postcodes up. So some people might say, does Camberley go over the M3? Well, it is what it is.
I think I'm right in saying that Bridges now own. I think Carlo and his team now own Orchard, don't they? I think I might have invented that in my head. Sorry, Orchards, if that's not the case, and sorry, Bridges, if it's not the case. But I think Orchard is a Bridges company. I think.
Okay, there's Avocados, the new lads, and we'll go down to number 20, and we will just look at the there's Martin and Co. And Hamptons. Okay. Before we go look at last year, let's just go and have a look at the upper quartile, see if there's any difference on the upper quartile. So we'll go, let's just have a look. So I'm going to go £1 million plus. There's not many houses here. So it quite appears here that Vickery and Orchard were, let's just remind ourselves who were the top players. Vickery, Orchard and Romans. Let's go and look and see who the £1 million. So Keir Charles just jumps up. So it looks like there's 3 or 4 big agents in the £1 million mark range. And then looking here, so we've already seen that. Let's just go and have a look at
with the exception of Romans, they're all very good independents. I mean, it's interesting that there's, Romans, you could argue, a corporate. I mean, they're not quite in the same breath as Countrywide, or Sequence now, but Orchard, Vicaries, Knights, Keir Charles, they're all really good. Bridges, they're all really good independent estate agents. We're really good owner occupiers, people that drive them. They're the ones that you want to see at the top, because they're doing it through decent agency in the main.
I mean, interestingly here, this is the last 12 months, and there's been a bit of a swap around with regard to Orchard and Vickery being number 1 or 2. Looks like Knights doing really well at number 3. Well, you can see the graphs here. So, again, everyone watching this in the office, again, this is the wonderful thing about this bit of kit, is you can judge the market share and stuff like that. Is there anything here that you particularly want to look at before we go and look at how successful they are as agents?
No, I think it's a good advert for independent agents. I know most of the owners of those top 3 or 4 businesses in that last graph, and they deserve to be top. They're good operators. They're honest, decent. I wouldn't imagine any of them would tolerate overvaluing as an institution. There'll be mistakes be made, but it won't be a policy.
Well, we are going to be looking at whether agents overvalue or not in the next screen, but we're looking at here now. So we're looking at between the 13th of August 23 and the night. Well, actually, let's move it to the 19th, but then we've got a level playing field. So that's a year and a day. Okay, so what we've got here is everyone's looking at the new instructions and new instruction market share, which is very similar to the stats I showed you in the previous screen. The true magic here is these 4 columns here. You see what in these postcodes, and remember that the numbers are going to be higher for your individual offices, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm only looking at certain postcodes. But in terms of the postcodes that we have mentioned, okay, in the last 12 months, Orchard, 136 properties have left Orchard. How do I know that? Because you can only leave a property can only leave an estate agent's book for 2 reasons. 1 is she exchanges, or 2, she withdraws, and you don't get paid on. So therefore, if you add up 78 and 58, that comes to 136 properties in the postcode districts that we have mentioned. What we're looking at here is what percentage of the properties that have left your books have you actually exchanged contracts on? The average in Camberley is 46.6. Remembering the national average is 52, 53%. So Orchard certainly could say, Mr. and Mrs. Miggins, we exchange contracts on 57 out. We'll get you moved 57 times out of 100. But Vicaries are at 63. And again, I've got to congratulate Knights at 73 is exceptional, isn't it?
Well, I would say it's where it should be, and everyone else needs to catch up. I'm not so sure it is exceptional. I think possibly the others aren't. I don't know where that phasing is either. You might have had a big sales month that hasn't yet come through. There might be a new home site that's from plan. But yes, I mean, look, I think for me, 75% of what you list needs to exchange. What's the timeline on that though? So if we're saying that 65 have gone in the under offer draw, I think that's what they're saying for Knights, which is a big number anyway. I mean, how many a lot of agents would kill to have 65 properties go in their under offer draw for what is 7 months, 8 months of the year. But the 53 that have exchanged, is that out of the 65?
No, so basically there's going to be a bit of a crossover, but
so there could be a phased element that might
So
change these a bit. Yeah.
Basically what we're doing is this: we are looking right between the 19th of August 23 and the 19th of August 24. Orchard in those put on 139 properties. They sold 100 properties. Some of those 100 might be those, but some of them might be old stock from previous years. It doesn't matter. They're standalone. And then separately, in the last year, Orchards have left 136 properties have left their books, which is 78 plus 58. Yeah, some of those might be some of those, and some of those might be that, but they are standalone. These almost should be. There's too many stats on this graph, on this chart, but fundamentally, out of the properties that have left Orchard books, 57.3% of it they've been paid on, and 42 the homeowner has left them unpaid. And look at some of those numbers. There is the variance is huge. I mean, last week we were in a different town and everyone was really tight. When you've got stuff in the late 20s and you've got stuff in the 80s, then that's telling me Knights are head and shoulders above in terms of their success rate of an exchange to listing. And well done.
Yeah, if you take the two stats across, if you take the exchanged percentage and the fall through percentage, that those two combined give you a bit of a story as to the caliber of the estate agent. But and there are some there that have clearly got some either training needs or some issues with the way deals are being put together.
I mean, what this is telling me, look at Knights, high exchange ratio, but a low. I mean, 41 is quite high for the UK, but for Camberley, it's low. I mean, look, there's some agents here that here we are. Romans are reducing the price on 81.4% of the properties they're listing.
Camberley is, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen all the other towns, Chris, you have, but I'm close enough to Camberley to know that if you want to look at a town where overvaluing is rife, this is it.
Well, we do actually have a screen in a second, which is going to look at the overvaluing. I have had a sneak preview, and my mouth dropped. I have not seen a town with such virulent overvaluing than Camberley, and I've been doing this show for 18 months. So absolutely fun. Now, it depends whether it's ethical or unethical, which again is a subject. But again, 54% of properties in the last year have on average, have a price reduction. There's stuff in the 80s and there's stuff in the 40s, but there is a quite clear here is this. Knights are getting paid on more houses. Their fall through rate is quite low at 21. And their reductions are low. I mean, look, 92%. Chancellors, you have a 7 out of 10 chance if you put your house on the market of being reduced. I mean, these are huge numbers. Not criticising, ladies and gentlemen, just telling it like it is.
I think that's fine if they go on to sell. I mean, and it's part of a strategy that's been discussed rather than a part of a policy to win the instruction. You can't tell from those figures which way around that is, but
you can look. Chancellors, you have a one in 5 chance, just over 1 in 5 chance of getting in a property exchanged.
Yeah, well, okay, there are some pretty horrendous stats there that you can't hide behind. And they're there. But as I say, there is some stuff here that shows some training needs in 1 or 2 departments, but as a group, a collective group, with the exception of the 2 or 3 that sit at the top, maybe the top 4 or 5 that sit at the top, overvaluing is an institutional problem in this particular. I happen to know that. I haven't even seen your graph yet, but I can tell you that I know that's a problem. Having said that, I defend them a little bit. It is a market that has very few similar properties. So it doesn't have a state and a state after a state after a state of identical properties where the values become much, much more rigid. They are all dissimilar. Those are not all, but a large portion of the market. You'll go down most streets in Camberley and no two houses are the same. So it is a slightly more difficult task. But there is the pound per square foot model whenever you've got that problem, and they're not using the pound per square foot model. I mean, I'm looking for a house myself now, and you've got some agents seem to be putting stuff on at X pound per square foot that's never ever been achieved, never. And then you've got other agents that are either putting it on but bringing it down, or putting it on at the right price in the first place. And of course, they're seeing the throughput of sales.
Indeed. Interestingly, there's a website called propertydata.co.uk, and there's a light version which costs like 15, 20 quid a month. And what it does is it plots the houses for sale. So you can say, give me all the 4-bedroom houses that are currently for sale, and it will plot on the graph the pound per square foot versus its area and put it onto a dot matrix graph. It is brilliant. So do check that out, ladies and gentlemen. It's a brilliant bit of kit. This is the overvaluing. So basically what's happening here is in the last 12 months, they've looked, 20 EA have looked at every one of your listings and then compared it to what you put on the market for. And you can see here that this is what they believe you're overvaluing by. I mean, again, there's some big numbers here. I'm not going to mention any names, but you can see them here. But there's some big numbers there in terms of what you're overvaluing. And then how much you're getting over or under the asking price. So orchards are putting properties on the market at 1.16 on average. The average is 1.95 in the town, overvaluing, and then achieving 4.29% less than the original asking price. This 3.43 is the average reduction that people are having to take in Camberley. Ian, I have never seen that number for as high as that for over a year. So just
it is a well-known
evidence, didn't you? You said, I know it's overvalued. Here's your proof. You know.
Yes, yeah. As I say, it is a disparate town in the fact that it is a bit more difficult, and therefore you may have to. I don't know whether the overvaluing is to win the instruction or it's strategic with the owner because the properties are slightly more awkward to value, or probably a bit of both, if we're really honest. The key will be to see whether the agent fixes the problem and sees it through, and 3 or 4 of them clearly do.
Yes.
3 or 4 of them clearly don't.
I mean, again, 54% of properties being reduced is big numbers. Let's go and have a look at how long agents are taking to sell houses. So this year in Camberley, it's taken on average 72 days to get a sale agreed and 114 days to get it through from sale agreed to completion. Let's look at last year's numbers. 56 days to get a property through from new instruction to sale agreed versus 121 days. So, you know, and again, that UK on average, the time and length it takes to get a sale through has gone down about a week, which surprises an awful lot of people, but those are the stats. And then what you can see here is you can look at all the agents here. So again, it's just, why is that not coming up? Here we go. So you can see, I'm not sure that these are the national figures in. I don't know why the Camberley figures are not coming up. So apologies on that one.
I think you just took the tick out rather than put it. I think you left all the other ticks in and took Camberley out, didn't you?
No. Let's just try that again. Must be a bug in the system. It's not happened before. These are the national figures. So we're gonna have to move on, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologize on that one. Must be a bug in the system. It's the first time it's ever happened. Let us have a look at what's been happening with the lettings. So actually what I might do on this one, Ian, is go and have a look at this one. Hold on a second. There we go. So we can look at market shares. I think this is really important. Okay, here we go. So in Camberley, just to give you an idea, the average rent in 2019 was 1,239, and it is now 1,652. So that just shows you rents have increased. Let's have a look. Now, this is always a good one, open rent. So open rent in 2019 had on average 3.6 of the market, and this year she's been hovering around 20%. ladies and gentlemen, that is your biggest problem as a letting agent in it, and this is across, those numbers are almost identical across the UK, is at the end of the day, open rent have been taking market share off yours because around half of the properties that open rent are putting onto the market have come from high street agents. I'm working some stats out at the moment. I'll be releasing them in the next day or so, a few days or week, but those stats are backed up. Now, what would be interesting is how many of them have then gone back to high street agents, which is a question you asked Iain before. But again, that's, I haven't got the stats of that yet. But again, let's see how the different agents, their stock is. So Romans #1, Waterford's.
This is by listing, yeah?
This is listings. Again, you're not gonna know the size of the portfolio, but obviously if you've got a bigger portfolio, you're gonna get more listings by definition, aren't you?
Yeah, typically, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And this could be the listing of a property that's become re-available. Your
Yes.
system isn't, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't allow that. Seymour's growing, well done. Lough's, Chancellors. Again,
Seymour's are quite new there, to be fair. So they're they're doing good things there, I believe, and they've got an office nearby in Blackwater.
okay. Again, this is just we'll go down to number 20 just to give you a flavour of what's happening. Okay. Okay, so there aren't many more stats on this, ladies and gentlemen, because of the nature of the stats, there's a lot more on resi sales. But I just thought the lettings departments might be interested in that to see how you're doing against your competitors in Camberley. Final thoughts, Iain?
Oh, lettings or sales or both?
Both, everything. End of the show.
I think the lettings market is a very difficult one at the moment in terms of it's got no rhyme nor rhythm. We are seeing in certain parts of the country and in certain elements of stock, you're seeing rents actually stuttering and properties struggling to rent. In others, you list it and you've still got people trying to bite your arm off. I think we're seeing that there's a trend where there's good schooling. It's still moving fast, even in the mid to high end of the rental market. But you're right. I think agents need to understand if people are experiencing your service and switching to open rent, then it's because they don't see the value in your service over the cheapness of open rent. So you've either got to come up with a cheap model, which I wouldn't advocate, or you've got to make your model live up to the expectations of the higher fee. Because I think most landlords will happily pay more, but if they still can't get you to return their call, or they still can't get you to deal with the problem, or they can't get anything from you that they're not getting from open rent, if your referencing isn't more secure, if your checking of tenants isn't better, if you're dealing with the internal inspections and all the other logistics, if it doesn't have value, they'll leave you. They now have a cheaper alternative. It used to be the cheapest agent on the high street, but now it's open rent. So they are by far the fastest growing letting agent in the UK by a country mile. Yet the service they provide is pretty benign. It's negligible. It just connects. In fact, it's the purple bricks of lettings, if you want to put it another way. Now, the consumer came back to the estate agents in selling because there was a massive difference between the outcomes and service in one area, particularly around sales progression and other bits, and our industry. That gap still needs to grow, in my opinion. But in lettings, guys, you've got to wake up. It's the crown jewels in terms of the value of your business. It's the crown jewels if you're an owner and you ever want to exit. And your biggest competitor is slowly but surely eating away at you because you're not differentiating.
Absolutely bang on, Iain. Absolutely bang on.
On the sales side, please, guys, we've got millions and millions of pounds worth of commission to share out amongst your business, your profit, to make sure that you can keep paying your staff and everything else. And an ever decreasing percentage of that opportunity is turning into money because you're charging too little and you're not converting the opportunities. That's well, I think it's remained fairly static at 53%, but your failure rate is too big. It's too high, 47%, 50% of the time, if you want to round it up and down. It's literally flip a coin as to whether I instruct you and get the job done.
And on that note, I want to say thank you, Iain, for your time today, but more importantly, thank you for watching the show. We will see you all being well next week with another UK property market stats show, a different presenter and a different town. Thank you, Iain, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.